lumière du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire.
Welcome back to our special report on the disinformation epidemic. Social media replicates what life used to be like. You log on, you see some crazy rumor posted by your Uncle Louie, you click on it, you press like, and you move on to the next post. But in our increasingly polarized world, the fact that rumor, innuendo, conspiracies, outright lies are amplified by social media is no accident. That is a feature built into platforms like Twitter and Facebook. It is part of their business model. Take Facebook, for example, which has over 2 billion active monthly users. When you sign up, you're asked to enter a bunch of personal data. When you press OK and agree to Facebook's terms of reference, terms of service, you allow it to harvest your data however it sees fit. It then takes your data and runs algorithms, basically formulas, designed to get you to engage more on the platform, to stay on the site longer, to click through more clicks, and to get more ads targeted to you. That's the main way Facebook makes its money. Facebook ranks content for you based on those algorithms, the probability that you'll like, comment on, or share a story. The problem is that this process can point you to some really outlandish stories. And before long, you might find yourself in the online equivalent of a rabbit hole, spending hours consuming misinformation and maybe even disinformation, deliberate lies. If you're vulnerable, and by the way, Facebook knows if you are, you could be tricked, or worse, you could be radicalized. And that's how the Facebooks of the world become an effective tool for bad actors to game social media in order to promote violence, to lie about things like vaccines, to interfere in elections. Long before the election of 2016, Facebook knew all of this to be true, but it followed a familiar pattern of responses. It denied there was a problem. When it acknowledged the problem, it treated it as a public relations issue, not as a core business issue. It offered up half-baked solutions that changed nothing, and it fought off attempts to regulate it. Because what Facebook has created is immensely profitable. Look at its stock price since going public in 2012. It has risen 644% to a value of $806 billion. Joining us now, Roger McNamee. He's a legendary tech investor and early and influential investor in Facebook well before it went public. Roger says he warned Mark Zuckerberg of the immense problems that Facebook's business model could unleash. In fact, Roger has written a book about it last year called Zucked, Waking Up to the Facebook Catastrophe. Roger, you and I have talked, all four of us have talked several times, and you indicated the degree to which this is a feature, not a bug. But now we are less than 2 months away from an election, and there is a chance that Facebook's unwillingness to deal with this could actually threaten our democracy.
Now, Ali, that's absolutely true. The company essentially believes that it is sovereign, the equivalent of another nation. It has more monthly active users than there are notional members of Christianity, nearly twice as many active monthly users as there are people in China. And so Mark Zuckerberg very much has the view that no one can tell him what to do. And his business is made by keeping people active and emotionally engaged on the platform. And there's no content on earth that does that better than hate speech, disinformation, and conspiracy theories. And it's not like they sit there and say, we're going to promote those things. It's just they create algorithms designed to keep us engaged. And those algorithms will naturally promote harmful content. The real problem we have here is that it isn't just about advertising. It also is true of Facebook groups. This was something created initially to give people a chance to get together and share things with family and friends and people who are interested in the same things. The problem is that Facebook groups have evolved to a point where they're now really the incubator for conspiracy theories and disinformation and hate. And in that context, Facebook's own research says that 64% of the time that a person joins an extremist network on Facebook, it is because Facebook has recommended that they do so. And Brandy and Ben have done amazing work to show how that has promoted things like QAnon and made conspiracies much, much more prevalent in our society. It's effectively mainstream.
Roger, you and I mean, one of the things that fascinates me is that I'm a business reporter. To me, I would think that a CEO warned about this would do something about it. You make it clear in your book that you identified this a long time ago and warned that this could be a problem. Why the resistance to fix this?
So, Ali, I really think, people sit there and assume it's about money, and I think money is secondary. I really think it's about power. I think Mark Zuckerberg has a vision that connecting all the people in the world on one network, his network, is the best thing any human being can do. And in his notion, it has to do with efficiency, it has to do with scale, it has to do with imposing his vision on them. And that kind of power is intoxicating. And remember, between when the company went public and 2018, the company got very little pushback. In fact, what it really got was tons of love from investors and journalists and the like. And they were in their own filter bubble and started to believe their own press and their own point of view about what was going on. And I just think that they're at this point now where they are just disconnected. There's really no sensitivity, no understanding that they might have a responsibility to society. And at this point, with the election coming so closely, this has become a national security issue because effectively the platform can be used by anybody. These advertising tools can be used by campaigns, they can be used by foreign governments, they can be used just by provocateurs, people who would like to make trouble. And that happens every single day. And from Facebook's point of view, that's just business as usual. They want to hide behind the First Amendment. They want to see this is about freedom of speech. But amplification is not freedom of speech. Amplification is a business choice for profit. And to undermine a pandemic response, which they have done, to amplify QAnon and create a merger of an online thing with militias in the street, those are things Facebook can't dodge. They have done that for their own benefit.
It is Monday, the 7th of September of 2020, and you are in West Coast Cookbook Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special on this fantastic Labor Day is River City Hash Mondays. That's right, it's been one of those weekends, as all the weekends have been, especially since the Orange Monster was installed by a hostile foreign power that writes all their contracts in Cyrillic. So, another one of those weekends. David had that clip of Trump wandering off from the presser. I mean, Air Force One was right there. Now, I had the audio down. It did look like possibly, and David did confirm, he was being shouted questions, and it's hard to hear because he always makes Air Force One run the rotors. He could give the presser like inside where it's quieter, but he likes the helicopter and likes the fact that he gets to yell. And so, maybe he was maybe I'll listen to this question, but it didn't look good. Let's put it that way. Especially since they're going to use Joe Biden's capabilities to be mentally there together, physically there together, as, a campaign against him? Joe? Man, you listen to Joe speak, you listen to this guy. Yeah, you know who. And, a lot of people like that. They really do. They don't want someone with empathy. Apparently, lying is strength, and the truth is for suckers and losers. And there's a strong constituency that believe in that, apparently. At least the toxic third numbers. inching up a little bit higher. But, always the constant toxic third that's going to be causing all the problems. And here we are once again having our work cut out for us. So get out to vote. Get everybody you know to get out and vote. Vote early. All right? If you can. They're going to try to really make it hard on Election Day. And Trump is going to declare victory the minute the polls close. As soon as one of the votes is counted in, from same day voting, as soon as one vote comes in that says, I vote for Trump, then he'll declare victory. And any of the counting that takes place afterwards, it doesn't count, according to him. Not knowing that originally the intention for these vote counts would take quite a while. Granted, they had to get the votes by donkey in some cases, horseback, rail. No, they didn't even have rail at that point. But yikes. It took them a while to count the votes. That's why the inauguration's in January. Oh, boy. But, this guy learned American civics from the FSB. He's, a lot of people are wondering, is he really a Russian asset? They're wondering. I think they should wonder no more. If he's not a Russian asset, he's been compromised because he owes Vlad something. And I think it's probably more than just the loans that he hasn't paid back, because he keeps skimming off the top until there is no more. His campaign is broke, apparently. Well, it's because he pilfers the money like he pilfers from his charities. Okay? Pilfered from the Trump Organization. Pilfered from all of his businesses. Pilfered from his casinos. How do you make casinos go bankrupt when you are the house? You make the rules. Yikes. Oh, my God. Well, he owes Vlad something. And I swear it's more than money. The money is involved in vast amounts. Let's not make a mistake about that. So it does explain a lot. I suppose it should explain the craven, hypocritical lust for greed and power that the GOP seems to have manifested across their political spectrums. Is there any spectrums in the GOP? Or is it just one entity mind hive? I think that's what it is. The Democratic Party, we're the ones that are always, at odds with each other because we're trying to make ourselves better and the world better too. Yikes. Whereas the other side is like, me. I'll help you as long as it helps me. What? Okay, so we have two opposing views of the world, and I have to tell you, our view is the majority. We don't need to both sides this. Oh, well, they have their view, and it's equally of weight as this other side. No, it's not. Oh, boy. But we are a representative democracy, and the majority is supposed to win. Remember that? Not when, around a third was able to control the Electoral College and say, well, we won. Yeah, well, you didn't have a mandate then. You don't have a mandate now. You can do all you want, but if you want us to turn out like Belarus, keep it up. Of course, we are probably already like Belarus, and we'll be speaking about that a little bit later. But some breaking news came in that I added to the news read at the last moment. But, we're falling down a rabbit hole of authoritarian, and they call it banana republic stuff. No, it looks to me like more like, weird Soviet mob governments that they have. I don't know if we call it Soviet, but the old Soviet bloc. You have the mob cartels of Slavic and Russo backgrounds. Pretty much running the show, handing out, I like this, franchises. Oh, yeah, well, you'll get the aluminum franchise, and you'll get the iron ingot franchise. And everybody kicks money up to the Don. And I don't mean Trump. Okay? Trump would like to have that. He's probably thinks he's getting it now. The way he talks about the Treasury and how he could just defund anything. He's executive. Congress controls the purse strings. On the other hand, there is Moscow Mish, the self-anointed Grim Reaper of the graveyard where democracy goes to die. So apparently, since Trump learned American civics from Vlad and the FSB, Mitch is the guy to go to. Speaking of go-to guys, what about this DeJoy fellow? Wow. You know, if you put a bullseye on your back, you're probably going to get a few slings and arrows lobbed your way, fella. Did you think you were going to get away with it? And what was he thinking he was going to get away with? Telling his employees in his previous businesses, oh yeah, you make contributions to these Republican candidates, and I'll pay you back in bonuses. And that is patently illegal. Now the question is, does he get to remain as Postmaster General? When he's up for, this will make what, 18 or is it 14? It's a considerable amount of people in the Trump orbit who have been indicted for felonies since he took office. And in some cases are in jail as we speak. Of course, Trump's just going to pardon him. All right. Well, look, it's a swamp. And the armada of Trump boats now know what it is to be swamped. Took me a long time to get there, but I did. And what's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays? Well, at the top, of course, Mark Zuckerberg is too focused on imposing his vision to acknowledge the website's threat to national security. And his vision? Master of the universe. Exactly. National security, what's a little? That's small potatoes for what I want. On the rest of the menu, the Oregon GOP had weeks to file its voter statement, but it won't appear on the general election voter pamphlet because they submitted the document 29 seconds too late. Too bad. The House Intel chair accused William Barr of lying when he said China posed a bigger threat to November's U.S. election than Russia. Yeah, that William Barr, he's quite a piece of work, isn't he? Uh-huh. And he has a habit of lying about things over and over and over and over. And the Navajo Nation demanded an investigation into Fort Hood after one of its members became the 28th soldier from the base to die this year. After the break, we move to the chef's table where the Ukraine accused pro-Russia separatists of violating the ceasefire with government forces. And in breaking news, as over 100,000 Belarusians marched to the outskirts of the presidential residence, demanding authoritarian Lukashenko resign, unidentified masked men snatched the leading opposition figure from the street in the center of the capital, Minsk. And not only that, they also snatched other members of the coordinating council and this leading opposition figure's press team as well. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. At netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page, of course, is our chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln, who is doing so much more. You know, she's working for the census. Can I say that? I will, because she's doing God's work, even though they're trying to close the census down before it should be. Thank you, Kelly, for doing all that you do, not only for Netroots Radio, but for the world as well. If you would then take a gander to the leftish of the page, you will then notice our Patreon link. And you know why that's there, because, of course, we have to pay our bills, and we count on you helping us to do that. If you could afford an espresso-type coffee drink and send that money to us once a month, we have great experience in stretching those dollars beyond compare. In fact, almost 10 years of stretching those dollars beyond compare. We've been paying our bills, flying under the radar, fulfilling our civic duty as the founders originally intended because of your generosity, and we need more of you. So, end of the year is coming up. Windows 7 will no longer be supported. We gotta join the 21st century before the 22nd comes up. And we've been getting some peripheral equipment ready and in place for when we purchase the workhorses that will be taking over the workhorses that are working like horses right now. And thank you for your generosity, and we really do appreciate it. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, it is so simple. You just go to @NetrootsRadio. Tom takes care of that and much more. Go ahead and look at our scroll on our webpage at netrootsradio.com. That's our homepage. Yes, we're marking a line in the sand, and we are for due process, equal protection for all, because Black Lives Matter. You know, all lives can only matter if Black Lives Matter. See how that works? Get on board, please, and vote. If you would like to follow me on Twitter, do so at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary about 10 minutes before showtime. Get that out on social media because that's what you do. And there you go. If you would also like to follow the show on Twitter, do so at Cookbook West. And the biggie one, the most important part, is please do pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. Okay, let's get into this first offering here as our snoozing sous chef is beginning to snooze a little bit louder than he has been this morning. Anonymous worker bees apparently at the Associated Press have put this offering here together for us here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The Oregon Republican Party statement for the state voters pamphlet arrived 29 seconds too late and won't appear in the guide mailed to voters for the November election, officials say. Laura Fossmeyer, a spokeswoman for Secretary of State Bev Clarno, said deadlines apply equally to everyone. Otherwise, they wouldn't be equal. Anyone wishing to submit information to the voters' pamphlet has several weeks to do so, and we recommend avoiding waiting until the last minute for this reason, she said. But Oregon Public Broadcasting reports that Kevin Hoare, the communications director for the state GOP, insists the party did get its statement into an online filing system by 4:59 p.m. on August 25th, the final day for filing. He had until 5 o'clock, okay? And he says, I didn't wait till the last minute of the last day. He literally waited to the last minute of the last day. All right. He said the party filed a lawsuit in Marion County because, of course, that's where Salem is. That's where the state capital is. So he has to do it in Marion County, demanding that the statement be included in the voter's guide before it goes to print later this month. We can't explain the interpretation and decision here, by state elections officials, Hoare said. Yeah, they told you don't wait until the last minute of the last day to submit your stupid statement. You could have gotten it in the day before. You know what you were going to say. Hey, please. State Republican Chairman Bill Currier said the failure to include his party statement for the voting guide reeks of partisan discrimination. Oh, really? Is that why you don't count all the deaths down here in Southern Oregon? Because it's Republican control and would make Trump look bad if the actual death counts were tabulated correctly? He added, if a bureaucrat in some decision-making role simply didn't like what our statement said, this doesn't give them the right to silence us. No, you waited until the last minute. Literally the last minute of the last day to submit your statement, and you didn't get it in on time because you opened up the web page and you sat there and suddenly it was too late. And now you're going to blame it on, they just don't like what we said. Yeah, we don't like what you said, but you could have gotten it in there a week earlier, even a day earlier. But no. Now, Clarno, the Secretary of State, is the only Republican in statewide office. A former Oregon House Speaker from Deschutes County, she was appointed to the job by Democratic Governor Kate Brown because, we like to legislate. And legislation means everybody's got to be on board. We got to fill those potholes. We got to make sure that if we have a flood, we know what to do in a flood. If we have an earthquake, we will know what to do in an earthquake. If we have an avalanche, we know what to do in an avalanche. And if we have feds coming into our state, beating people up and spiriting them off the street, we know what to do. And we all do it together. And she was appointed to serve the rest of the term after Secretary of State Dennis Richardson died in 2019. So Clarno is a Republican. She's the one that said, I'm sorry you got it in 29 seconds too late. Look, we told you. You have several weeks to get it in. We recommend people do not wait until the last minute of the last day to get your statement in. The statement submitted by the Republican Party was headlined, Had Enough? Vote Republican. It attacked Democratic leadership in Oregon on issues ranging from unrestrained rioting in Portland to mismanagement of the pandemic resulting in catastrophic small business losses. Excuse me. As bad as our infection rates are becoming because of people like the Republicans who decided it's all a hoax and we're just going to go out everywhere and spit on each other, and our death rates and infection rates have spiked here in the last month, our infection rates are low because our Democratic governor didn't call it a hoax and did what needed to be done. He also said that Courier was locked out of the online filing system for several hours, delaying the party's ability to file its statement. The Secretary of State said there were no problems or glitches with the online reporting system. The Secretary of State, who is a Republican, by the way, we simply received the statement after the filing deadline. Worker bees, this time at Reuters, bring us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. The chairman of the House of Representatives Intelligence Committee yesterday, Sunday, accused U.S. Attorney General William Barr of lying when he said China posed a bigger threat to November's U.S. election than Russia. That's just a plain false statement by the Attorney General. Adam Schiff told CNN what Bill Barr just did in that statement was flat out mislead the American people. Barr, named Attorney General by Donald Trump last year, told CNN on Wednesday that China was more of a threat than Russia when it comes to alleged interference in the U.S. elections. I've seen the intelligence. That's what I've concluded, he said without offering details. Except when we offer details, they're just dismissed now, aren't they? Trump's national security advisor, Robert O'Brien, made a similar comment on Friday, also without providing details. Well, of course they think that China is a bigger threat because all that China did, as well as the rest of the world, pretty much put out the kind of attitude that, anybody but Donald Trump. Are you kidding us? Whereas Russia is actively trying to take over our country and has been. They declared war on us, please. Let's see. Asked if Barr was lying, Schiff said, that is basically what he is doing, and I hesitate to say that, but it is the reality. Apparently, Bill Barr is ready to do anything or say anything to help Donald Trump, Schiff said. Barr's office did not immediately respond to a request for comment because they don't need to. All they have to do is get it out there in the minds of people. And he's done his job like he did with the Mueller report. U.S. intelligence found that Russia orchestrated a cyber campaign to sway the 2016 presidential election to Trump's favor, and there have been reports that hackers may try to influence the November 3rd election. The top U.S. counterintelligence official, William Avenina, said last month that Russia, China, and Iran would all attempt to interfere in the election, but let's remember, China and Iran were included in that report at the insistence of the White House. He said Russia was already going after Biden and what it sees as an anti-Russia U.S. establishment, while Kremlin-linked actors were trying to boost Trump's candidacy via social media and Russian television. He said his agency assessed that China would prefer that Trump not win the election. Yes, the whole world would prefer Trump not be president, except for Vladimir Putin. Since it's Labor Day, it's going to be all the anonymous worker bees getting no credit for all the work they have to do. This anonymous worker bee works for Reuters, and they bring us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine yesterday, Sunday, violated a ceasefire with government forces, killing one soldier and wounding another, the Ukrainian military said. The rebel forces opened fire with a grenade launcher on troops in the area in the Donetsk region and with small arms near a village in the Luhansk area, the military said in that statement. Rebel officials were unavailable for comments because they were out trying to kill Ukrainians. The Ukrainian military said the attack indicated the pro-Russian forces wanted to disrupt an agreement reached by the two sides for a full ceasefire from July 27th. The simmering conflict between Ukrainian troops and Russian-backed rebels has killed more than 13,000 people since 2014. Major combat ended with a truce agreed in the Belarus capital Minsk in 2015, but sporadic clashes still regularly kill civilians, Ukrainian soldiers, and separatists. Looks like another one of those Vlad Russian nesting dolls to me. Okay, that brings us to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world. And we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, double the fun. For an actor best known for buddy movies, Seth Rogen shows that his best co-star may be himself. In his new movie, An American Pickle, he plays both main characters. Based on the 2013 New Yorker short story, The Sellout, An American Pickle, it tells the tale of Herschel Greenbaum, an Eastern European immigrant who comes to America with his wife in the 19-teens. Herschel gets a job in a pickle factory, but as fate would have it, falls into a pickle barrel, only to wake up 100 years later perfectly preserved. With his wife and son long gone, Herschel discovers his only living relative is a great-grandson, Ben, an app developer living in Brooklyn. Ben invites Herschel to stay with him, but the two men quickly learn that they have very different philosophies of life. Ben, who's developing an app and expecting a big payoff, is a disappointment to Herschel, who doesn't really understand Ben's efforts. As it turns out, Herschel is a natural entrepreneur and sets up an artisan pickle stand, which becomes a huge hit with Brooklyn hipsters. Despite the family ties, the two men become rivals, with Ben determined to undermine Herschel's success. Hilarity ensues, but as the cartoonishly contrived setup sort of suggests, the movie's true calling is as a fish-out-of-water comedy that relishes taking swipes at cultural issues and especially at family expectations in a uniquely Jewish context. Rogen shows that he's becoming a versatile actor who's come a long way since Apatow movies. Director Brandon Trost makes the most of the Brooklyn setting, and Simon Rich's screenplay stays true to the themes of the original story that he authored. An American Pickle is an offbeat little film that works, maybe because it doesn't venture too deeply into weeds that are all around. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Scott Hirschberger. The chance that a human being like you will be struck by lightning is minuscule. But what if you're a tall tree in the tropics?
Lightning happens in milliseconds. We can't predict where it's going to be, and we generally can't find it after it's happened. So what a hard thing to study.
Evan Gora, an ecologist at the University of Louisville. Now, for the first time, Gora and his colleagues were able to quantify the effects of lightning strikes in tropical forests around the world, thanks to satellite data and a network of ground sensors.
We saw that forests that have more lightning strikes hitting per hectare per year have fewer large trees per hectare, presumably because they're killed by lightning. More biomass turns over every year, so basically the lightning seems to be affecting the forest and causing trees to die, and then they have less total biomass.
In a ground survey in Panama, the researchers found that a single lightning strike typically damages more than 20 trees, and within a year, 5 or 6 of them die. The scientists combined this figure with their satellite data from around the world to estimate how many trees in tropical forests die each year due to lightning.
We think around 830 million trees are struck by lightning, and about a quarter of those, around 200 million, are killed. So that's a lot. And as I mentioned before, we know that it's not just a random tree in the forest. Typically, it's the largest trees.
The study is in the journal Global Change Biology. Gora says the findings reveal that lightning is one of the most important natural factors killing trees in the tropics. How climate change will affect lightning patterns is not well understood, but some models predict more frequent lightning as the planet continues to warm, which could mean even more carbon-storing trees would disappear.
Tropical forests basically function as our planet's main terrestrial air conditioner. So if we're decreasing the carbon stored in them, that's going to have a big effect on their ability to continue, conditioning our planet and taking up all that carbon that we're producing.
Gora's work is just the beginning of this research. He hopes that future technological advances and fieldwork will help scientists better understand lightning's role in ecosystems across the planet. The findings should be illuminating. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Scott Hirschberger.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Welcome to A Cup of Health with CDC, a weekly feature of the MMWR, the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. I'm your host, Dr. Robert Gaines. As fall turns to winter, the flu season will be upon us in force. The best way to avoid influenza is to get immunized. Dr. Joe Brazee is a researcher with CDC's National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases. He's joining us today to discuss the importance of getting the flu vaccine. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Thank you.
Joe, let's start with how long does the flu season last?
In general, flu seasons will last for several months in the United States at the national level. Each year it begins in the fall, usually peaks between January and March, and ends in the spring. But the timing of flu season is unpredictable, especially at the local level. So because we can't tell for sure when it will start, when it will peak, and when it will end in every community, we want to make sure that people get vaccinated as early as possible when the flu vaccines become available in the late summer and early fall.
Well, who should get vaccinated?
Everyone 6 months of age and older should get vaccinated against the flu each and every year. This is especially important for people at high risk of complications or severe flu if they get infected.
Which groups are at higher risk for complications from the flu?
Well, some people are at especially higher risk for severe flu or complications. These are people who are very young, like kids under 5 years of age, anybody 65 years and older, and people with underlying health disorders like heart disease, lung disease, kidney disease, or diseases of the immune system, and pregnant women.
Joe, how effective is the vaccine for preventing flu?
Well, vaccine is the single best way to protect you and your family from the flu each year. Most years, the vaccine reduces a person's chance of getting the flu and complications from the flu by about 50 to 70%. But how well it works can vary from season to season and by person. So remember that vaccine is one of 3 ways you can protect yourself against the flu. The other ones are good hygiene, like hand washing, covering your cough, staying home when you're sick, and finally medications. There are medications that your doctor can prescribe to treat the flu if you get it.
Are there any side effects from getting vaccinated?
Well, there are 2 types of flu vaccines. First, the shots. The most common side effects with the flu shots are soreness or redness in your arm for a day or 2 after getting the vaccine. The nasal spray vaccines can cause runny nose or congestion or low-grade fever in some people for, again, about a day or 2 after getting the vaccine. So these side effects are mild compared with the disease itself, which causes hundreds of thousands of hospitalizations and tens of thousands of deaths each year in the United States. Remember that the vaccine is the safest and most effective way to prevent flu each and every year.
Joe, where can listeners get more information about the flu vaccine?
We'll go to cdc.gov/flu.
Thanks, Joe. I've been talking today with CDC's Dr. Joe Brazee about the annual flu vaccine. Remember, everyone 6 months and older should be vaccinated. To get your annual flu vaccine, see your healthcare provider or go to a pharmacy, grocery store, or clinic in your area. If you get influenza, talk with your healthcare provider right away about antiviral medication. Until next time, be well. This is Dr. Robert Gaines for A Cup of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This is a message from CDC.
After hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods, standing water and excess moisture help mold grow in your home, garage, and other structures. When you return to a home that has been flooded, know that you're likely to have mold. Mold puts your family's health at risk. If you have mold growing in your home, you should clean it up and fix other water problems, such as leaks in roofs, walls, or plumbing. Keep your children and pets out of affected areas until you've cleaned. Control moisture in your home to prevent mold growth. To remove mold growth from hard surfaces, use commercial products, soap and water, or a bleach solution of no more than 1 cup of household laundry bleach in 1 gallon of water. Follow the manufacturer's instructions. Never mix bleach with ammonia or other household cleaners. It will produce dangerous, toxic fumes. Open windows and doors to provide fresh air.
For more information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
I'm probably okay to have 1 more drink before I drive home. I'm probably okay. I open the window to stay alert. Probably okay. I just popped some gum in my mouth.
Step out of the car, please.
I probably made a mistake.
Probably okay isn't okay when it comes to drinking and driving. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Wow, how about that Dow? The Dow Jones average of corporate stock prices, I mean. The one economic indicator that our nation's establishment watches religiously. They're like ancient priests watching a burbling, hissing volcano to determine if the gods are pleased or angry. Bizarrely, despite the pandemic recession that's knocking down millions of Americans, corporate profits are soaring. So believers in the infallibility of the Dow exclaim that these are boom times, with the economy showering shareholder wealth on us like manna from heaven. But most Americans are asking, a boom for whom? America's real economy is a shambles. Joblessness is still above 10%, with a tsunami of new firings coming as airlines, retail chains, the restaurant industry, state and local governments, Main Street businesses, and so many more are now collapsing right in front of us. Forget the Dow Jones average. We need policymakers who give a damn about the Doug Jones average. How are Doug and Desiree doing? Telling them about the booming stock market is stupid, for the Joneses don't share in that wealth. In fact, the number of Americans who own even one share of corporate stock has plummeted in the past 2 decades as the rich and super rich have grabbed the bulk of our nation's wealth. Today, nearly 90% of all stocks are in the hands of the richest 10% of Americans. This is Jim Hightower saying, yet the menagerie of lazy fairyland ideologues and lawmakers now in charge of our economic policy continue genuflecting to the Dow, insisting that the price of stock equates to a high standard of living for all. As Republican Senator Pat Toomey recently proclaimed, life is better today than it ever has been for the majority of the American people. His proof? Toomey pointed to the fact that cars now come equipped with seat warmers.
If you'd like more of Jim Hightower's real populism, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter gives you the real lowdown on which corporations, by name, are doing what to the middle class, our environment, and our democracy. Each month, the Hightower Lowdown brings you facts you didn't know, along with actions you can take to fight back. It also comes with a sense of humor. Hightower believes we can fight the gods and still have fun. Plus, get this, it's cheap. Only $15 brings you 12 issues a year. For real populism, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
Earlier this year, President Donald Trump labeled the United States Postal Service a joke. I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. Let's start with a factual correction. The Postal Service has been a lifeline of democracy in the United States since it was established in 1775 by the Second Continental Congress with Benjamin Franklin as the first Postmaster General. After the American Revolution, the Constitution, as adopted, and as it remains today, specifies as one of Congress's enumerated powers the power to establish post offices and post roads. In this pivotal election year, shaped by a global pandemic, there is nothing remotely funny about the administration's plans and actions to gut the Postal Service, which is essential to the timely delivery of ballots, not to mention the delivery of census data, COVID supplies, and needed prescriptions, among other things. The House of Representatives has passed the Delivering for America Act, which would prevent the administration from gutting the Postal Service and pay for the Postal Service to maintain its previous levels of service until the COVID crisis has passed. Saving our Postal Service will promote the general welfare and help secure the blessings of liberty. And so the Senate should pass, and the President should sign, the Delivering for America Act. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU, because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2.
On this day in labor history, the year was 1882. That was the day that the first Labor Day celebration and parade took place in New York City. The New York Sun printed a vivid report of the parade of 10,000 marching workers. The paper described, quote, men wearing regalia, men with society aprons, and men with flags, musical instruments, badges, and all the other paraphernalia of a procession. The article went on to say, quote, as far ahead as one could see, and as far down the side streets as forms and faces could be distinguished, the windows and roofs and even the lampposts and awning frames were occupied by persons anxious to get a good view of the first parade in New York of working men of all trades united in one organization. All along the line, cheers were sent up. The reporter described the colorful banners carried by each trade union and noted that following the bricklayers came, quote, 2 decorated wagons containing brick arches. On each side of one of the wagons were the inscriptions 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, and 8 hours for recreation. And get on to it, the union will never surrender. From New York, the idea of setting aside a holiday for workers spread. Oregon became the first state to officially recognize the holiday in 1897. Colorado, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and New York established a Labor Day that year as well. By 1894, 23 more states celebrated the workers' holiday. It was that year that President Grover Cleveland declared it a national holiday in response to the Pullman strike and boycott that began in Chicago. Labor Day is the day to honor the sacrifices made by labor fighting for safe and fair workplaces.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is 58 degrees Fahrenheit. And we are expecting record highs today with sunny conditions prevailing throughout. Highs around 101 to 103. Winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Overnight lows in the low 60s. Winds out of the northeast increasing to 10 to 15 miles per hour. And mainly sunny skies tomorrow, though it looks like we have a bit of a drop-off in temperature. We'll see how that turns out. They are saying 95, sure. Winds out of the east-southeast at 10 to 15 miles per hour is what is expected for tomorrow. Confirmed coronavirus cases in Jackson County and the southern part of Oregon now stands at 864, though the complete weekend totals will come out later today, and we'll give you those updated totals tomorrow. Deceased are now at 3, and as I've stated many times, that is a gross undercount. Ragweed pollen is the pollen of choice, I suppose, right now being measured, and it is moderate right outside the window of the mothership here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy and at Roots Radio, by the way. The air quality index in the whole region is moderate at 58 parts per million, and that's not good, okay, just so you know. And the daytime UV index has come down a notch, though still in the high range at 6. Barometric pressure is holding steady at this hour at 30.03 inches. Visibility is at 9 miles. And relative humidity is at 68%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 70 degrees and partly cloudy. Paris is 75 and sunny. Rome is 85 and sunny. Kyiv is 85 and fair. Kabul is 77 and fair. Hong Kong is 80 degrees and mostly cloudy. Tokyo is 81 and mostly cloudy with a typhoon. Yeah, really bad ones too. Sydney, Australia is 60 degrees and clear. San Francisco, California is 70 degrees Fahrenheit, sunny. And, they have a heat advisory. And look out for the fires, too. It's coming for you. And New York is a pleasant Labor Day holiday, 75 degrees and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Well, of course, I jumped ahead and started off on something from the chef's table instead of finishing up with what was out in the Bistro Cafe. So why don't we do that right now? And anonymous worker bees from the Associated Press do bring us this, first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The Navajo Nation has called for an accounting of deaths at Fort Hood after one of its members became the latest soldier from the U.S. Army post to die this year. Private Coralton L. Chi, a 25-year-old soldier from Pine Hill, New Mexico, died on Wednesday after he collapsed following a physical fitness training exercise 5 days earlier. He is the 28th soldier from Fort Hood to die this year. The Navajo Nation Council praised Chi in a statement on Friday and urged the Army to thoroughly investigate his and the other soldiers' deaths.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Joris Carbonell of the Associated Press and Luke Harding of The Guardian bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Over 100,000 demonstrators marched yesterday, Sunday, to the outskirts of the presidential residence in the capital of Belarus, calling for the country's authoritarian leader to resign as protests against Alexander Lukashenko entered its fifth week. Protests also took place in major cities throughout Belarus. Crowd sizes for those protests were not immediately reported, though a human rights organization said the demonstration in Minsk attracted more than 100,000 people. The protests, unprecedented in Belarus for their size and duration, began after the August 9th presidential election. And in breaking news, the leading opposition leader, Maria Koleskinova, who is the last leading opposition leader left in Belarus, has been kidnapped off of the streets, and so has her press team and the rest of the coordinating council, who are trying to remove Lukashenko from authority. And that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. And you do know Netroots Radio will broadcast on And we'll meet up tomorrow for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tombe, nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goer. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tendre, nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.